Hi, 7th graders, and welcome to Lesson 10.6, Surface Area of a Cylinder. The goal today is to be able to use the formula to calculate the surface area of a cylinder. You want to be sure that you have your notes open to this lesson and that you have a calculator and a writing utensil. Let's answer the question, what is the surface area of a cylinder and how do we find it? First of all, what is surface area when it's talking about a cylinder? Well, the surface area is the number of square units that covers the outside surface of any cylinder. So because it is square units and we're talking about area, the label that we're going to be using is units squared. So centimeters squared, inches squared, anything like that. Now let's talk about the formula. How do we find surface area? Well, the surface area formula looks like this. SA equals pH plus 2 big B. Take a moment to pause the video to go ahead in your notes to write the surface area and what each of the variables in the formula represents. Pause the video now so that you have time to do that. Okay, now we're back. Hopefully you have that all written down. Let's take a closer look. Let's look at that surface area formula. Here's a cylinder. Let's break this cylinder up into its net. If we do that, it looks something like this. Two circles, which are the top and the bottom bases, and then if we were to take the tube that wraps around the cylinder, and if we were to cut it and unroll it, it would make a big rectangle. So how is this formula created? Let's take a peek. Looking at the net, we've got two circles and a big rectangle. That creates a cylinder. The formula says to find surface area, it's pH plus 2 big B. So let's break this down. What does that 2 big B represent? Well, the big B means the area of the base. And since there are two of them, we want to multiply by 2. So we're going to find the area of a circle and double it by multiplying by 2. And that's going to take care of the top and the bottom bases when we find surface area. But we've got this big tube in the middle, right? That's what the pH is representing. It's representing that tube. But when you unroll the tube, you get a rectangle. So let's take a look at that rectangle. It's easy to see that the height of the rectangle is the height of the cylinder. But think about when we unroll that tube, the part that's rolled up in a circular way, that's the circumference of the circle. And when you unroll it, it becomes the length of the rectangle. So that's why to find the area of that tube, you would take circumference times height. But look at the formula. It doesn't say circumference. It says perimeter. When it says perimeter there, that's representing the circumference. Remember, perimeter is the distance around a figure, and the distance around a cylinder is the circumference of a circle. So P represents really circumference when we're talking about perimeter. Okay, so as long as we take the two circular bases, their area, and add it to the tube, we'll get the total area on all the surfaces of a cylinder. So let's give this a try. Here's our first example. In your notes, go ahead and write down that the height of the soup can is 6 inches and we have a radius of 2 inches. All right, let's give this a try. To find the surface area, we're first going to start off by writing down the surface area formula. It's always a good idea to write down the formula before you begin. So surface area equals pH plus 2 big B. Okay, then once you have the formula written down, we are going to be figuring out the area of the tube and the two bases. So let's start off with the pH, which is representing the tube. Remember, P is circumference. So we're going to use the circumference formula for P. It's perimeter around the circular cylinder. So to find the perimeter, which is circumference, I would take pi times diameter. Well, it looks like in the picture the radius is 2, so the distance all the way across would be 4. So pi times 4, and then we also have to multiply that by the height. And we can see that the height of the cylinder is 6 inches. So right here, this part That's going to be your tube. That will give you the area of the tube. Okay, then we're going to want to add that to the area of the two bases. So you can see it says 2 times the big B. That's because there's two bases. So 2 times, and now the B, that's going to be the area formula because the bases are circles, and the area of a circle is pi times radius squared. So pi times radius, which is 2, squared. Okay, so now we have to follow order of operations. The addition step happens last. We want to do all of the multiplication and add last. So in our calculator, we can go ahead and take pi, 3.14, times 4 times 6, and that's going to give us 75.36. And then if we find the area of the two bases, 2 times pi times 2 squared, the calculator will tell us 25.12. Okay, so I did all multiplication first. And lastly, I can add these two together, the tube and the two circular bases, to get the total surface area on the entire cylinder. So surface area would equal 148 hundredths, 0.48. And remember, this is surface area. It's the square units covering the surface. So this is inches squared. Area is always squared. So notice how many steps this took, quite a bit. So it's going to be really important that you show your work and that you write your work down on paper. Okay, there's example number 1 with the soup can. Let's move on and try another one. Here I'm just going to give you just a plain cylinder, and it looks like we're going to label the diameter down at the bottom all the way across the circle as 7 inches and the height as 10 inches. So go ahead and label that on your paper. And we're asked to find the surface area. So remember, we always begin by writing down the formula. Surface area equals pH plus 2b. Okay, remembering that pH, perimeter times height, that's the tube. And remember, perimeter is distance around, and we're going around a circle, so we're going to use circumference. So that's pi times diameter. The diameter here is 7. And then we want to multiply it by the height, and the height is 10. So pi times 7 will give me the length of the tube when I lay it out as a rectangle, and the width is the 10, that's the height. So here we've got the tube. Okay, put down a plus sign, and now we're going to do the two bases. Okay, so I'm going to start off with 2 times, because I want to double the area of the base because there's two bases. We got two circular bases. So then for the base, the area of the base, I'm going to use the area formula for a circle because they're circles. So pi times radius squared. If the diameter is 7, then halfway across the circle would be 3.5, 3.5. So this would be 3.5 squared. Okay, and if it makes it easier because you have a decimal, remember you can always change these into times signs. That works too. That way, if you have any decimals, it's hard to tell. It's easier to tell the difference. Okay, so that's a decimal, 3.5. Okay, so remember order of operations, the addition comes last. So let's first do multiplication. Pi, 3.14, times 7 times 10 in the calculator says 219.8. And then when we do the two circular bases, 2 times pi times 3.5 squared, you should be able to type all of that into the calculator at the same time. It will tell you 76.93. And then our last step is to add them together to get our final surface area. So we're taking the tube and the two circular bases and adding them all up. So calculator is telling me 296.73. And remember that square inches. How many square units covering the entire surface of the cylinder? Just like that. Looking pretty good. Okay, there was our second example. Now you've seen it twice. On number 3, we have a cylindrical shaped present, and we're going to wrap it with paper. So we're asked how many square inches of wrapping paper are needed. So if I'm looking at how many square inches cover the cylindrical shaped present, I'm talking about surface area. So we're going to be finding the surface area. So we're going to start off by writing the formula. Surface area equals, be sure you have all your parts labeled on the present, 5-inch radius, 17-inch height. So we've got pH plus 2b. There's our formula. So let's do the pH first. Remember, P is perimeter, and perimeter is the distance around the circle. So I got to use the distance around the circle formula, which is circumference. So I'm going to use pi times diameter. If the radius is 5, that means all the way across is 10. So 10 is the diameter. Now we want to multiply that by the height, and the height is 17. So that's going to give you the tube around the middle. Then we want to add that to the 2 circular bases, the top and bottom. So I'm going to take 2 times the big B represents area of the base, and they're circles. So I'm going to use the area of a circle formula. So pi times radius squared. The radius they gave us here was 5. Okay, remember order of operations, addition happens last. So in the calculator, we're going to take pi times 10 times 17, and the calculator says 533.8. I can bring down the plus sign. Now for the area of the bases, 2 times pi times 5 squared. Calculator says 157. So I've got the area of the tube and the area of the 2 bases. So lastly, I'm just going to add them together to get the total surface area. And calculator says 690.8. And that would be inches squared. That's how much wrapping paper we would need. Ta-da! Pretty fun, isn't it? It's just following the formula. As long as you show all of your work and your steps, you will get the right answer every time. Okay, let's go to our summary. So remember, when we're finding surface area, it is area. So it's how many square units cover the cylinder. So it's units squared. So let's define it again. Surface area is the number of square units that cover the outside surface of any cylinder. And the surface area formula is SA equals pH plus 2 big B. Feel free to take a moment to pause the video so that you can write down your summary, and you should be ready to practice this skill. Have a great day.